Mary has not joined us yet. Gershom is present. Larry Gershom Curtis is present. Larry Valabi is present. Javier Gonzalez is present, and Michael Jones is present. We have a quorum. And guests and attendees, looks like we have Emily Anderson from the faculty, Clarissa Infante from the faculty,
Correct. She's
the staff,
staff.
and Imelda Hernandez, AKA Minnie Mouse, in attendance as well. And I believe Imelda is a parent.
Correct.
Yes. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Is there a second? I'll second that. And Gershom, do you vote to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Larry, do you vote to approve the agenda?
Yes.
Javier?
Yes.
Michael, yes. Alrighty. And now we come to the part of the agenda where it is open for public comment. Do any of our guests want to comment on something that is not on the agenda? Hearing nothing, we will now.
Wait, no, I think we've got a few comments actually.
We do.
Emily, this would be the time if you wanted to present your Good Things at Saba presentation.
Yeah, it's a little long, which is kind of why I wanted people to look it over on their own time. What do you think?
I think it's a wonderful thing to have on the agenda, so I would encourage you to present it.
Okay, sure.
Same here.
All right. I am presenting it here in my office, Emily, just FYI.
Okay, is there a way for folks on Zoom to see it? Should I share my screen or
That would be good, actually.
can I?
Yes.
Sure.
Let me give it a shot.
Dun, dun.
Oh, you know what?
There we go. Cool. Okay, so I just sent an email out to the teachers on Friday that was just like, if you have had a particularly cool lesson plan or experience with the kids in the last couple of months, please send along a little description of it or some pictures of the kids working on it. And I actually got a lot of responses, which was awesome. This first one is from Miss Gallagher. She, in order to teach the digestive system, she had the kiddos create board games about the human anatomy. So this is the digestive system board games. And she was hoping at some point to get the high schoolers to go and teach a 6th grade class how to play their board games. So that's kind of the next step on it, which is really cool. Everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then Miss Williford, who teaches 7th and 8th grade science, did a dissection of earthworms and taught the middle school students how to use microscopes and such. She said that they were super into it, which was really cute. And actually, like, looking at a cell close up, they're like, oh, it's beautiful. Ms. Verkar, who teaches 10th grade English, does this every year. When she teaches Lord of the Flies, she has the students build a 3D diorama with paper mache of Lord of the Flies. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year she's done this, and it's super awesome every time she does it. You can always tell because kiddos are running around with like paper mache down their front. And then they did like a gallery walk of everyone's finished product. And the kids get super into it. Miss Sickler teaches The Great Gatsby, and she does a Socratic seminar associated with The Great Gatsby, and something that she's been battling this year with the 11th graders is post-pandemic, they've been incredibly quiet, like shockingly quiet for teenagers. So this was a cool display of the kids actually talking in class, which has been an uphill battle for her. And this was a student survey that she sent out to see whether or not they actually thought they learned something from a Socratic seminar style. And it seemed like most of them really felt like they got something of value out of that. I'm not going to show this video, but I encourage you to watch it on your own. It's funnier if you know the kids. But it's a slightly awkward rendition of a scene from The Great Gatsby. That's pretty hilarious if you know these girls. And then in my class, we're doing pen pals with each other. It's funny, I ran into Mr. Rip in the lunchroom today, and we were talking about how their fine motor skills, it's kind of disturbing how terrible kids' fine motor skills are because they're so used to typing. And like balancing that with technology usage and stuff. So for 20 minutes on Fridays, they have to handwrite a letter. Like I taught them how to address a letter, which I didn't think was something that they didn't know how to do, but none of them knew how to address a letter. So we write letters to each other. They just have they have a new random 8th grade partner every Friday that they have to write to. And it's pretty cute how excited they get to get letters. This is high school boys basketball. And then this is Mr. Sutter's yeast lab. So he does cellular respiration with the kiddos. And yeah, that's what's been going on at Saba.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Wonderful insight to what's going on at school.
Yeah. A lot of fun lessons.
Clarissa, was there anything you wanted to share?
Yes, so we are currently in Spirit Week at Saba. Today was Santa Hat Day. And there's a lot of kids of the first Saba Spirit Week we had, we didn't have as much participation. Now we've been having a lot more as like the Spirit Weeks are coming along. On Monday, we also had a rally, which was awesome and literally looked like a candy cane lane of how Isaiah and Mr. Winchell decorated the stage. A lot of kids got super into the rally. They love to just be silly with one another, be able to participate in games with freshmen and seniors together, and then sophomores and juniors together. They had a great time. And then this Friday, we also have our winter ball dance. So the kids are getting pretty excited for that. And they keep asking me if they have to wear a suit and tie because they think it's super formal. So I like that they're, stepping outside of the jeans and sweats and, wondering if they can wear a tie and be all spiffy to their winter ball.
All right, thank you, Clarissa.
Sounds like fun. Anything else for the public comment? I'd like to welcome Mary Navas and note that she's a board member and is in attendance. Also to welcome our consultant, Nick Driver. Hi, Nick. Okay, with that concluding public comment, we will now move to our closed session. So those of you who are not on the board, we'll see you when we get out of closed session. And Daniel, how will people who are not in closed session know that we are coming out of closed session?
I'll be here right outside.
Are you gonna keep this open?
Yep, I'll keep this open,
Okay.
and then y'all just let me know when we're ready, and we'll join right back in.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Okay, everybody, we are reconvening back to open session. I'm gonna go join the rest of the group here on site.
Okay, go ahead.
1, 2, 3. Daniel, could you help Larry do whatever you did last time? So his computer that's what's reverberating. Alrighty. So welcome back to open session. We're resuming the meeting. And I would like to present the following report coming out of closed session. The board approved the administrative panel finding of fact and recommendation for expulsion regarding confidential student discipline matter, case number 112922021. The roll call vote that we took in closed session was 5 votes in support of the motion, 0 votes against, and 0 abstentions. That concludes my comments on the action taken in closed session.
I will text Paul right now.
All set?
Yes.
Okay, we will now go into the report section with an operations report from
Yes. Sorry.
Daniel Ornelas.
So I intended to report on attendance and enrollment this week. However, given that we will need another board meeting next week, I will choose to report the attendance and enrollment next week, as next week I will have worked with our district to report our P1 attendance report. So we'll work on that next week. And then I also wanted to make a comment. Our audit, we intended to bring our audited financials today for review and approval. However, the state has given a month extension to do so, and our auditors have been a little bit behind on their audits. So we will be bringing it next month. We do have an agenda item for today where we'll be reviewing the board dates for the 2022 school year, or the 2022 calendar year. In there, I think we proposed January 11th will be when we bring that audit back. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ornelas? Daniel? Okay, we will now go on to the next report, which is the head of school report.
All right, I will share my screen. It's also in the board link, so. Share. Slideshow. Okay, so each month during the board, at these regular board meetings, I update the board on one component of our organizational goals for the 21-22 school year. And this year is human resources, or often called staffing. So our org goals for this year, we had 4 goals. Staff turnover rate below 15%, 80% of staff reporting satisfaction with training and support on surveys, All positions filled by the first day of school and a decrease in workers' compensation claims by 10%. We are not meeting our staff turnover rate goal of 15%. We're currently at 16% and we're only halfway through the school year. The staff reporting satisfaction with training and support will be part of the LCAP survey that we provide in the spring during Q4. And when we have that information, I will update the board on staff's responses to our training and support. All positions being filled on the first day of school. Ironically, we did have all positions filled on the first day of school. We just did not continue to have all those positions filled, and we're going to go into detail on that tonight. And then finally, decrease of workers' compensation claims by 10%. We have 0 claims for the 21-22 school year, so we're doing well there. Any questions about this first slide? Okay, next slide. I wanted to parcel out our turnover rate by teacher and then everyone else, which we'll call admin and classified, going back the last 5 years. So if you look at the beginning of, at the top row, 16, 17, we had 9 teachers leave out of 30, which was a 30% turnover. 17, 18, we had 7, 23%. 18, 19, again at 9. 19, 20, 8, 20, 21, 8, and then 21, 22, 5. And so you can see the corresponding percentages there. What I think has been more impactful this year than in years past is the staff that you see leaving 9, 7, 8, probably between 90 and 100% of those staff left at the conclusion of the school year. So they finished their teaching contract and then said, I'm going to move on for whatever reason. In this year, all 5 of our teachers listed here left in the first quarter of this 21-22 school year. And so SABA students, teachers, everyone was really stung by the impact that that had on our program. And then I put, just to compare these numbers, we have admin classified staff. And so our total staff at SABA is usually hovering between 55 and 62 staff members at any given time. And so we can see our classified and admin staff has a lower rate of turnover. And I should point out too, it's really an apple and oranges comparison, because this is including interns, often of whom these interns are here for a set amount of time and then they're going to go back to school. So of course they're going to leave naturally. And so if we were to pull those interns out of those numbers, we'd see numbers below probably 10% for classified and admin staff. So I think what this really reveals is that teacher turnover is a challenge at SABA, and we need to do something about it. So my next slide goes over where we're at this year. So staff that left this year, we had a middle school and high school PE teacher, high school health teacher, high school ELE teacher, high school resource teacher, and a high school math teacher. 2 paraprofessionals, an office coordinator, and the student activities coordinator. And we replaced them with a PE substitute, credentialed substitute for the health class. We had a system of a co-director of MTSS. MTSS stands for multi-tiered systems of supports. We had 2 directors for that big job this year, but one of the directors ended up having to take over the high school ELA class. For the high school resource teacher, we were able to replace that teacher with another credentialed resource teacher. We were able to replace the 2 the paraprofessionals, and then the office assistant replaced the office coordinator, and then the activities coordinator's responsibilities were distributed amongst current staff. What job openings we still have, or we have posted as of 12/7, are the high school health teacher position, the ELA 9 or English 9 position, grade 9, Algebra 2, which is the grade 11 math position, and then we're still looking for 1 more paraprofessional.
Josh,
Yes.
do you do exit interviews with your staff? And if you do you know why they left in the middle of a school year?
It varies, and we actually talked about that. I am not certain that I can reveal with specificity as the reasons for staff departures, because I wanted to include a slide with a pie chart of the reasons why. And so I will look into that and see how I can legally reveal that without breaking any rules or laws.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Credentialed substitute doesn't mean credentialed teacher, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is a credentialed substitute somebody that has a BA and is past the CBEST?
Yes.
So substitute.
Well, the reason I'm highlighting credentialed is because that's what we want to have all of our positions be credentialed. And so a substitute, but we also have had, like, for example, last year during the pandemic, we had classroom supervisors who were not credentialed with the students.
So I'm sorry, what was the difference between that and this?
I'm sorry, classroom supervisors?
Yeah, what the classroom like the difference between the classroom.
Like, for example, in this case, the current substitute for high school health is a credentialed health teacher, meaning he has the appropriate certification to be a certificate substitute teacher in the classroom.
Okay,
So in regular day-to-day operations, if you had an open health position, you could go and grab a substitute off the street who just had a BA and passed the CBEST, and that person could legally take over that classroom as a substitute.
That's correct.
Number of days. For a limited number of days.
And because of the staffing shortages that schools are facing, this year they actually changed the requirements to obtain your substitute teaching credential, and now you only are required to have a bachelor's degree.
No CBEST? So you're trying to, for the sake of SABA, raise the bar by saying we want to look for substitutes that actually have the appropriate credential.
Well, not only that, but and we're going to talk about this on the next slide, if the person's the right fit, be like, okay, get your sub credential. Okay, let's take a look at what your experience is. Okay, maybe you can move to joining a credentialing program and becoming a full-on teacher.
Right. So you're trying to nurture a possible addition to the staff.
That is correct.
and as part of that, there are people on the staff that understand the credentialing process and are there to support the teachers through that process, because it's incredibly complicated, having just gone through it myself.
Yes, there are staff members that support teachers in pursuing their credentials.
Can I ask who?
Rachel?
Okay.
Rachel Berg is our Director of Human Resources.
Okay.
All right, so then the next slide, strategies to reduce staff turnover. So I'm actually participating in an AXA professional development workshop this year for human resources. And so we covered this a couple Saturdays ago. And strategies that were shared there and I think apply here is recruiting year round. And so a lot of times there's a concern about mid-year hires, but the big emphasis that is now being talked about in human resources circles is it's all about the right fit. And so if you can find the right candidate who's going to be a good fit for your school, it doesn't have to be July. If it's March, see how you can get them into your organization, because if they can be there and be long-term at your school, that's going to provide dividends over the long term. Something that's new that's came out recently that we don't have at SABA, but we could explore is the paid mentor-mentee position. And so we do have induction through the County Office of Education, where a mentor is provided through the Santa Cruz County Office of Education for teachers who are completing their credentialing program. But a lot of schools now are offering stipends for both the mentor, who's an experienced teacher at the site, and the mentee, who is new to the site, regardless of the years of experience, and saying, okay, we'll pay you X amount of dollars to work together some hours per week to kind of help you become better acclimated at the site. And I think that could be a real positive for SEBA. I know when I hear teachers talk about this, a lot of times they are doing this kind of informally anyways. And so I think it'd be great to just kind of formalize the agreement and also acknowledge the work that's involved for both parties.
And that's kind of timely that you bring that up right now, because we do have the educator effectiveness block grant for which we're reviewing today for hearing for the board. And I wonder if that's something that we can add into the plan. Is something like that, because it directly impacts the same way that induction does.
Yep.
And we're getting funding for it, so.
How far away is Cal State Monterey Bay?
30 minutes.
They have a school of education. teacher
Correct.
program. Have
Yes.
you ever contacted them about
Ye-
placing of student teachers?
Yes, in fact, we did place student teachers here. We placed 2 right now. And then the way that it's working is they were here for a certain amount of time and then they rotate onto other sites as well throughout the school year. So one thing I think, thinking back on how we had new teachers join SEBA this year and then many of them quit through the first quarter. It's important that we're really upfront and honest about the experience that they're going to have joining SEBA, and also try to get them into the building as much as possible to maybe do a sample lesson so that both they know what they're getting into and the school knows how they're going to respond to the situation. What made this challenging last year is because we were still in the partial pandemic and all of our interviews were conducted over Zoom and in-person meetings were limited. Academic calendar and year-round schedule. So we're exploring that with the staff. I plan to bring the academic calendar for next year to the board in January. But we're getting survey input about what would be the ideal calendar. Obviously, we want to put student needs first, but teachers have lots of creative and constructive thoughts about what would best serve students. The bell schedule and length of workday is another item that we're considering and how that could impact staff turnover. Meaningful coaching and feedback. And so we have 3 evaluators for teachers, and we want to make sure that that evaluation is helpful and that there's a relationship built there. Finding the right fit for the position. So sometimes, we're like, all right, we need to find this position and okay, we're going to hire this person. In fact, we've had a few interviews where even since the staff left during quarter 2, where, well, it's a person who has a credential and they could be in there. We knew that, boy, they may not be here longer than 4 weeks. And so it's about trying to find the right fit and not having this kind of, continuing in and out door of teachers. Developing teaching leadership pathways internally. So for the sake of long-term or longevity of staff at SEBA, it's important that we're doing that. A detailed professionally created curriculum, especially for teachers new to SEBA. It's nice to be able to rely on a curriculum that has everything. And so you don't feel like you have to create everything from scratch. And then finally, of course, competitive compensation.
Hey, Josh, can I ask how was this list compiled?
Rachel and I made this together, and I was just reviewing my lessons from my HR AXA Academy. AXA stands for Association of California School Administrators. And so this is kind of what's new in HR circles now.
Okay, so these are general strategies, not strategies specific to SEBA.
Well, I think all of them do apply to SEBA.
Okay, I'd like to ask maybe if teachers could have a chance to answer this question directly at a board meeting, maybe in the future.
Sure. As a teacher at the board meeting now, do you have some thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but they're not well organized, and I don't want to speak on behalf of others either. I do think that there's some things missing from this list, and that are specific to SEBA and the SEBA experience. And so maybe at the end of the meeting, I can suggest that that be put on the next agenda, or what's the kind of protocol for that?
Yeah, that works.
Okay,
Perhaps for the January agenda, so there's a bit more time to collect some of those thoughts.
you mean February?
Now, we have another board meeting next week, but we think that'll be too tight of a
Oh,
turnaround.
Yeah,
So-
and then January,
January
we're
through-
gonna be on break.
Yeah, so February.
February, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I just think that being like the experience at Saba is different than like being a part of a school within a broader district. And the workload associated with being a teacher is different, like what falls categorically under a teacher's responsibility versus what would be like administrative duties or duties of just functions that a broader district would take off of a teacher's shoulders. I think we really need to think about that in terms of staff retention, about how much more a teacher has to deal with and the scope of their classroom at Saba. And I'd be curious at least if other teachers would like the opportunity to express something along those lines.
Yes, that'd be interesting to explore.
Thank you.
Mr. Riff, I have a comment or a question.
Sure.
So there were 9 teachers that left in 21-22 school year, right?
Let's go back up.
5 teachers, I think there are 9 total staff.
Oh, 5 left and 9 vacancies, right? 9, there was a total of 5 and then you have the
Oh, yeah,
9.
9, yeah, 5 teachers, 4 other, so admin classified.
Just to get an idea, how many were like new teachers that were hired and they left within the first quarter, or were they teachers that had been with Saba for quite some time and they just left? Can I get that information?
Yes, 4 of the 5 teachers were new to Saba.
So as soon as they got hired, they said, "Oh, it's too much for me, and let me try something else."
Yeah, so this is getting into the reasons for leaving, but there's a number of factors at play there,
Okay.
including maybe signing a contract in another district after signing on to Saba.
Yeah, and-
Oh.
and that's given that Saba starts a bit earlier than most.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, just looking at the rate, I mean, I've been with Saba for a long, probably like 9 years, and looking at these numbers, it's nice to see that the numbers are going down. But I know that this has been an issue for a very long time with teacher turnover, especially for subjects that are crucial for students to have a permanent teacher that's teaching in the classroom, such as math, science, English. Those are the teachers that we need to have at least for the whole school year, because that affects each student if they're not self-motivated. Just to have that teacher leave in the middle of the school year, that their morale also gets down. Because I experienced it with Jose, who graduated, and now Diego being in high school. I'm hoping not to see those teachers leave.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the impact of not having a teacher and the teacher leaving impacts the whole school in a lot of different ways. It impacts students and their engagement and their trust, impacts the fellow teachers at that grade level who now have to kind of fill in the gaps for the teacher that departed. So yeah, I can't understate the impact that a teacher leaving has on the organization.
I just want to clarify, Imelda, the numbers, unless I'm reading this incorrectly, the numbers are not actually going down.
Correct. Like you would look like this year is down a little bit, but we're only halfway through the school year.
Right. So the 20 to 21, that was for the entire 12 months of the school year. And for this, we've lost 5 teachers since June. So the numbers we're not going to know until the end of the school year, like
True.
comparative data for the whole school year.
That is so true. Yeah, you're right.
And I totally agree with you as well. Like as a teacher, when teachers leave, you can see the emotional impact on the kids, which, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it's really hard on them.
So you actually had at least one teacher who used Saba as their backup plan? So they got a better job and quit?
Yes.
You.
So I think since we're being general, we don't like, again, I'd love to bring us in a slide about why people are leaving. And I think maybe I can do that. And if it's anonymous, we're not getting specific to the teacher, maybe that would be okay to present at a board meeting. But yes, that does happen. And it's like, since we start in July, it's like, okay, I'm on. And then, oh, look, I got this. I'll start in August.
I think Emily brings up a good point that, here we are halfway through the year, we're at 16%. If we follow true, the form that we've set for the last 5 years, we're most likely going to double that, get to 32%, which would be the highest. So I think it is an important challenge. And I think teachers' insights as to what is going to inspire people to continue with Saba is critical. So I look forward to hearing the ideas that come from the staff, both classified and certificated.
Another comment as a parent, I know that Saba does a lot to keep parents informed and keep parents up to date with how students are doing in the classroom. And I know that's a lot of work. And because of that responsibility, I think compared to other schools, I mean, I've heard, because I was part of the DLAC at this district level when my kids were in elementary, and I heard from high school parents saying that they never heard from their counselors or their teachers never met. So I can only imagine that the responsibilities at Saba are greater compared to the district or to any other school. So I think that also has, I'm pretty sure it must play a reason why teachers leave. I mean, I understand as a parent, there's a lot of responsibility because they're on top of it. They keep us informed of what's going on with our students, and maybe exploring and taking, like it was mentioned, that responsibility to somewhere else where they're reaching out to the parents. Yeah, it's nice to hear from the teachers, but we need to understand they do come in early, leave late, sometimes doing fast 40. I mean, there's a lot of things that Saba does for our students to be successful.
And I think anything parents can do to express their appreciation for the hard work of the staff is important as well. So hopefully those activities are taking place. People are giving that some thought because we're very fortunate to have the staff that we have. We have to nurture and support them.
Any other thoughts or comments? Okay,
That's the end of your report.
that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Rip. We will now continue with the agenda to the consent agenda. Is there anything on the consent agenda that people would like to pull up for further discussion?
No, I'm good.
Hey, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mary moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Larry seconds. And getting to my list. We will now vote on approving the consent agenda. Mary Navas,
Aye.
Gershom, Therese,
Aye.
Larry Belavi,
Aye.
Javier Gonzalez,
Aye.
Michael Jones votes aye also. It passes 5-0, no nays, no abstentions. Moving right along. Hearing
Okay,
items. What
yes.
is the difference between hearing items and action items?
Hearing items, this one, per the state, we have to have a meeting to
Oh,
review.
so we have to close the meeting, open the meeting, all that stuff?
No, we have to review this document that we plan to submit to the CDE for our intended use for the educators effectiveness block grant. We review it as a board. If there's any commentary or anything that we need to change or adjust, we can do that. And then at a subsequent meeting before December 30th, we have to get this approved so that we can submit it to the CDE.
Similar to what we do for the LCAP in June.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the next section we're entering into is a hearing regarding the educator effectiveness grant. And Mr. Rip, will you be presenting that? Or Mr. O'Neill?
I could share it, have it up on my screen.
Let me open it up. Okay, so
You got it.
I'll share.
So SEBA is
Goes. There we go.
So SEBA is entitled to $116,200 from the state for educator effectiveness. This grant gives us, well, I can read the background here. The enacted budget provides 1.5 billion one-time Proposition 98 general fund to support professional development in specified high needs topics, including accelerated learning, social emotional learning, re-engaging students, restorative practices, and implicit bias training. So the grant gives us specific uses that we can use the funds on. We will have these funds to use from the 2021-22 school year, this school year, all the way through 2025-2026 this school year. So with these funds, can you scroll down? We can use it on any of these 10 uses, coaching and mentoring of staff serving instructional setting, programs that lead to effective standards aligned instruction, improved instruction in literacy across all subject areas, practice and strategies that re-engage pupils and lead to accelerated learning, strategies to implement social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, suicide prevention, access to mental health services, and other approaches that improve pupil well-being, practices to create a positive school climate, strategies and supports to improve inclusive practices, best practices for early identification and development of individual education plans for students with exceptional needs, instruction and education to support implementing effective language acquisition for EL, English learners, new professional learning networks for educators not already engaged in education-related professional learning effort, instruction and strategies to incorporate ethnic studies curricula for grades 7 to 12, instruction, education, and strategies for certificated and classified educators in early childhood education and childhood development. So for our purposes, what we have been doing is we have been using these funds historically strictly for new teacher program induction. So if you spread out that $116,000 over 5 school years, that's roughly $23,240 per school year. That's the intended plan that we have, is to spread that out over these 5 school years. But again, this is a hearing, and it's at the board's discretion to approve or make suggestions as to how else we can use those funds based on those 10 uses that are allowable. So the current plan that I have presented in front of us will fall under that first category.
It sounds like your idea for one of those strategies that Mr. Rip shared would fit in very appropriately
With that
this.
same, yes.
In fact, it almost sounds like what you have as point number 1 on the list of ways that you're going to use this.
Yes.
So out of curiosity, what do you pay for a new teacher project? I know it will vary from year to year depending on your new teachers, but
Yeah, that's kind of been varying over the last 3 or so years, because before we used to go directly through, there was a partnership between Santa Cruz County and the Silicon Valley New Teacher Project. So we were going with that for a while, and I think we averaged maybe like 3 or 4 teachers that were in the program.
okay.
This year, did you say how many? 3, Josh?
No, we actually had 6 this year.
We have 6 this year.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the cost was for Santa Cruz County.
I think
But-
it's $5,200 or $5,400 a
Okay,
teacher.
It depends on whether you're providing the mentor internally or externally.
Right.
And so we transitioned a few years ago to providing internal mentors. But then after
Okay.
discussion, we're moving towards more external mentors with the new teacher project.
okay.
So this will
I-
cover most of the cost.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion regarding this?
I saw at the beginning, Daniel, in the background, it said part of what these funds can be used for is implicit bias training.
Yes, that was in the background. I'm guessing that might fall under the number 4 allowable uses. I can't, that's the only spot where I see implicit bias. Thanks, Josh, for doing that.
Yeah, I think this is something that the staff has been pretty hungry for is more professional developments on things of that nature. I'm not sure if these funds could be used for that, but it definitely feels like a need at SABA.
Sure. Maybe we could have a little bit less for new teacher project each year and then dedicate
A certain amount.
a certain amount towards social emotional learning, implicit bias, trauma informed practices.
Yeah, because so right now we have this like DEI group at SABA, and it's mostly Sky Marquez and I, and we and me, and we have had multiple conversations of feeling like it's the blind leading the blind, where like, we're coming up with these slideshows on like how to not use like racist language in school or whatever, but like don't necessarily feel qualified to be doing that, and would love to have more training from whoever.
All right, we're writing that suggestion down and we'll include that in the follow-up to this, which will be next week.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion or questions regarding this grant, I will now close the hearing.
Okay.
And we will now go on to action items, starting with the first interim budget.
Yes, and for that, we have Paul Corey from DMS to help guide the summary of our first interim budget.
And I'm sharing my screen, Paul, just for
Thank you.
everybody in the audience.
Good evening, board members. What I have to present tonight is the first of 2 mandated budget revisions. This is called the first interim. It includes actuals through October 2021. So 4 months of the year are completed, about 33% of the year. And we update based on current enrollment, ADA, and then we look at other trends and things that are happening in the actual year and make our adjustments to the original budget. Remember, the original budget is created before the fiscal year starts, and oftentimes there's things you don't know that will happen and so forth. So let me just start by saying, if we go to the next page, let's look at the summary real quick. So the left column was the original board approved budget. The middle column is where we are through October. And do not worry about that loss, because in this world, we operate on a cash basis until the end of the year, and revenues don't flow evenly, and they really will pick up steam in the second half. So just looking at where we're at through 4 months doesn't really tell you the full story. And then the third column is the revised budget, and the fourth column will show you changes from the original budget to the first interim. So you'll see we are down by 9 in enrollment and 8.74 in ADA. So that would of course lead to a drop in our main operating revenues, LCFF. Usually we're at about, roughly rule of thumb, back of the envelope is about 10,000 to 11,000 per pupil per ADA on LCFF. But here we went up by 150,000. Now, there are other factors that go into the calculation of LCFF. There are your unduplicated count. So we do take your CalPADS report through October to look at number of ELs and so forth. And also when we did the original budget, when the final budget was passed, there were some small adjustments to say the COLA on the LCFF. So that largely negated any potential downside you would see on the 9 students. I want to also point out that you'll see a flip between federal and other state revenue.
Mhm.
Back in May, we had what they call the expanded learning grant, which was to address learning loss for students. And it was going to be paid 50% in May and 50% in August. The CDE over the summer changed and made it federal monies instead of state grants. So that you'll see part of that state loss is just shifting up to the federal side. So overall, our revenues are pretty much flat from the original budget, even though we're down by nine students. In expenditures, you can see there are savings in certificated, classified, and employee benefits. As far as staffing changes, if there were specifics that, Daniel or Josh might have more specifics about any particular positions that might have been eliminated.
Yeah, Josh just presented to the board a staffing report where we did note that we had some staff leave us early on in the first quarter. And due to that, we have some vacancies that are unfilled at this point. And if they do fill in the second half of the school year, we still have that, like what you show on the budget, we still have a lower estimate on those expenditures for staffing.
Thank you.
So I have just a quick question. Part of those changes from adopted to now, while you were referencing the LCFF, when you budgeted, did you include the 65% or the 15% increase in the concentration grant? Or was that also?
No, because that happened pretty late in the whole budget discussion. And remember, most of the original budgets, they're due to the county by July 1.
I know.
There used to be a time when you knew the state would pass their budget by the time we're getting around. And last few years, it seems like they really pushed the envelope. And there were a lot of reasons, the pandemic and circumstances beyond everyone's control. But they've gotten later and later and they make final tweaks to not just, COLA adjustments, but there is that expanded learning, the increase, like you said, in the concentration grant. I think they're using a resource 2600, but that would be reflected in there as well. So that's pretty much what held us steady over the drop. Yeah.
Thank you.
So when it comes to book supplies, services, and operations, we also look at the first 4 months. We look at the trends. We look at actuals. There could have been, changes made, decisions made on curriculum and so forth. But these are pretty minor changes overall. Expenditures in this budget are down by 109.6 thousand. So overall, our net revenue, we originally had projected a surplus of 298,000, and now we're projecting a surplus of 412,000, which also gives you, when it rolls into your fund balance at the end of the year, you would have a reserve of 56.8%. And it also gives you flexibility depending what happens. We're living in a time where things change almost week to week. So it gives Josh and his team, some flexibility if they need to make decisions midstream come January, February. I would the last thing, there's a more detailed view if the board wishes to look at more specific changes. But the last thing I usually would look at also is the cash flow, just to show the board how cash is affected by all of this. But overall, it does remain positive. Daniel, if you can just scroll to the very end, we can look at the cash flow real quick. There we go. And I know, go back up, sorry.
No.
Go to the first one, there are two cash flows. I think there's a multi-year. Okay. So the blue shaded columns are your actuals through October. So you end October with 2.9 million in the bank. Top sections, your revenues, your expenditures, and the bottom section are just, not to be technical, but it's working capital. It's more changes in receivables and payables and any loan payments that are made. But right now we're looking at possibly ending the year with 404.8 million, which would be about 242 days of cash on hand for SEBA. And that will depend, as long as those revenues come in as projected up at the top in June, but clearly there's slack and there's enough of a buffer there. Cash flow is not a concern for this organization.
Yeah, well, as mentioned in your summary page, our lowest projected cash point would be 107 days of operating costs.
We've already passed that period. So yeah, we're in good shape. I entertain any questions if the board has any.
Nope, it looks good. Thank you.
The next interim will be the second interim based on January 31 actuals, and that'll be due to your authorizer somewhere around mid-March, March 15th.
All right, thank you, Mr. Curry, for your presentation.
My pleasure.
I think we will now move on to.
Is that an
the-
action item?
Yes,
Oh,
it is an action item.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
So it's time to vote to approve the first interim budget. And do I have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
And do I have a second?
One second.
Thank you, Larry. And sheet. Olivia is not here. Mary Navas, your vote.
Aye.
And Gershon Torres,
Aye.
Larry Belabi,
Aye.
Javier Gonzalez.
Aye.
Michael Jones votes aye as well. Motion passes 5 ayes, no noes, or 0 noes, and 0 abstentions. Okay, now we will go on to the SEBA board calendar.
Yes, and
Do you want me to share?
yeah, I shared that. with
I can
you.
go through it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so this is pending board approval, but it is, the SEBA board calendar runs on the actual calendar year and not the academic calendar year. And that's just to kind of give a little bit of preparation. So what you're seeing here is when we would have meetings for the 22 year, not the academic year. And so you'll see we continue with our plan for the first Tuesday of every month, except for January because it's right after New Year's. So we start off with January 11th, and then the first Tuesday in February is the 1st. Same with March, April 5th, May 3rd.
We did,
There's 2 May 3rds.
yeah, I think that one was supposed to be, we can probably amend it so we can make that one June 7th.
Oh,
June 7th right there. So we have 2 board meetings in June for the LCAP hearing and the LCAP approval.
okay.
Yeah, actually, I have it right there on the right, but I didn't edit the date right there.
Okay.
That was to June 7th.
June 7th and June 14th.
That's why it's a draft. Okay, then we're gonna go to July. We postponed from the first Tuesday in July because of the July 4th holiday. And then we go in August, September, October, November, and December. And so generally speaking, board meetings take place the first Tuesday of each month. We'll continue with our start times as 5:30. And we need to update the address as well.
That was gonna-
215 Locust, yeah. So, any questions or comments about the proposed board calendar for 2022?
So the August 2nd board meeting would function as the board retreat we had this year, or?
Great question. we could do that and make one of the regular board meetings an actual retreat rather than having the retreat as something separate.
Do we have a retreat on a Tuesday or on a Saturday?
That's a good question too. What is the board's preference? Did you like the Saturday or do you want to keep it on a Tuesday?
I like Saturday.
Me too.
All right, so should we keep this and then add a board retreat, or do we just have one meeting and it's the retreat? We do board business on the Saturday and then follow up with the retreat.
Yeah, I like the idea of exchanging one of these board meetings on a Tuesday to a board retreat on a Saturday.
Okay, so that would be Saturday, August 6th. If we wanted to keep it the same week, which I think we should. It's currently Tuesday, August 2nd, and if we move to Saturday, it would be Saturday, August 6th.
That's fine, except I won't be in person.
All right, how about Saturday, August 13th?
I'm gone for most of August.
Should we move our board retreat to September?
I could.
I'll be gone.
Oh.
I'm in Zoom, but I'll be in Spain.
The only note for September, that's when we approve the actuals.
Let's keep it as is right now. And as the date approaches and we know a little bit more closely what our schedules are looking like, maybe in May or June, we can say, okay, we're gonna have our board retreat for the 22-23 school year on this day.
Yep.
Does that work for?
Yeah, that works
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I can just tell you August 2nd is not gonna work for me because it's my daughter's birthday.
Valid reason.
Do we need to approve this time? With all
Uh,
the changes we've tossed in? Or do we wait until, well, we can't wait, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can approve with the change for June, especially, and then as we get closer.
So
like Josh said,
I would just say approve with the changes shared in the meeting tonight. Daniel's got those written down and then we'll update it, post it to our website.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the 21, the calendar year 2022 board calendar with the changes discussed, which Daniel has reported?
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Javier seconded. And Mary, how do you vote?
Aye.
Gershom, how do you vote?
Aye.
Larry, how do you vote?
Aye.
Javier?
Aye.
And Michael votes aye as well. That motion passes 5 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Okay, let's move ahead to the stipend update for special education.
Okay, so and on August 6th of last year or of last school year, we approved the stipends for Fast 40 bilingual teacher leadership, et cetera. And I am bringing to the board tonight a new stipend, or I'm proposing a new stipend entitled Special Education Coordinator Stipend. And this stipend amount will be $10,000, and this staff member who will have to be an RSP teacher will be coordinating IEP student schedules, annual IEP meetings, triennial meetings, IEP amendments, and outside services. And it's kind of just to bring a little bit more coordination and leadership to the special ed department to make sure that we're meeting all of our legal requirements there. And so I would like the board to approve this stipend tonight because I think it's going to serve our students.
How many special ed students do you have?
72.
Now, you said that this person would have to be one of the
Resource
RSP
teacher.
teachers. Does it say that in that description? I don't see it.
One staff member who coordinates. Oh, you're right, it does not.
That make, when I read that, I thought, oh, so anybody could.
Well, I think we could update to that. I mean, they'd have to have their own SACE account. So theoretically, somebody could apply for this.
I
And
think
if they were better than the other people who applied, we would get them set up with a SACE account. But it would be hard for me to believe that a credentialed resource teacher would not be the most qualified for this position.
And I would think it'd be highly desirable to have the person that's getting the stipend be an RSP teacher and credentialed to be an RSP teacher.
Yes. So okay, so what we could do is edit this to say one credentialed RSP staff member. Right here, is that? I think it's a matter of kind of de facto versus de jure. All right, we're gonna state this here, or it's just kind of common knowledge when we say this is available and people apply, we'll take the most qualified, which of course is going to be the RSP teacher.
this
So
is-
Josh, who does this current work?
The director of MTSS, multi-tiered systems of
Right.
support.
Mhm.
Is that person an RSP credentialed teacher?
No,
So you're basically taking a responsibility from her portfolio and giving it to another person who will be an RSP credentialed teacher who is willing to take on this extra work for $10,000.
correct. Well, so we'll post it and then they'll have to apply and we'll interview and award it to the person who's best suited.
How did you come up with 10,000? Is there a rhyme or reason to it?
Well, we looked at the other stipends. There was a discussion about, is this too much or too little? And so if you look at the other stipends here, we have 4,500 for interscholastic coach, which is a very involved process. It's more than double that. Being teaching ELD, where's that one?
Yeah, bottom of the page.
There it is, 5,000. And that's a significant time commitment.
Mhm.
And so we said, okay, well, it's bigger than both of those responsibilities. So let's double it. And we came up with 10,000. So that was the
Okay.
reasoning behind it.
Yep.
I had a question about that ELD position or that ELD stipend, but that's off topic. Mary, you were looking like you were giving me an eye over there.
Well, now I'm gonna bite my lip. Can we talk after the meeting?
Yes.
'Cause I have some real strong feelings about some of this, but it just doesn't work for me. I mean, not that we shouldn't provide the kind of leadership for special ed students that they need. You got 72 special ed kids, and you're asking a full-time teacher to take on coordinating all the IEPs for 10 grand.
No, okay, so I think that leads to the question. It doesn't mean that they're owning the coordinating of every single IEP. That responsibility is going to be shared. But what they might say is, okay, 3 resource teachers, figure out your IEPs. Oh, look, hey, Adriana San Milan's only available on Tuesdays. You need to adjust that. And so they're kind of supervising that process rather than like doing all of that work.
No, I get that, but it's
Okay.
still 72 special ed students. There's an incredible amount of legal and moral responsibility to taking care of all of those kids.
Yes.
For $10,000 above a full-time teaching load.
Are you saying it's okay?
You're giving your athletic director 0.5 release time to do athletics.
No, athletic director gets $4,500.
There's not a 0.5 release time?
No,
for
No,
we-
that?
that was
That was
something that was proposed, I think.
Athletic director gets $4,000 per year. So just for context. Good, that's a fair, yeah.
Well, is there any space to give this person a release period?
We could talk about that more offline and I can share about like student distributions and I can be really specific with that.
I think that depends on the applicant as well, right?
Correct. It will depend on the applicant and the number of students that they have under their, Yep.
Well, it just feels to me like it's a really important job.
it definitely is. So, well, I mean, are you suggesting we adjust it? I'm open.
It's hard for me to know without knowing exactly how well your special ed students are being served right now.
Yeah.
Are you happy with how they're being served?
I think we could grow in this area.
So if you want to grow in that area, is it worth investing the money and finding the right person and give them a little release time so that they can grow this, make it more efficient, make it more student-centered, make it everything else that special ed needs to be?
I think this is intended as a start, right, towards that end.
Yes.
Can I chime in, Josh?
Yeah. So.
I know as a teacher, this is a different perspective than what many administrators hold, but I do believe that teacher needs and student needs are the same thing if you trust your staff. And Larry, to answer your question about whether or not special ed students are being served, I would really urge you all to speak to the special ed department about how they feel under the strain of their current workload. Because it's been a rough go this year, trying to get everything back on track after the pandemic and backlogs of IEPs and testing and wading through staff turnover and not, it's been a struggle for our SPED department. And I really, I give them a lot of credit for the progress they've made this year. And I'm happy to hear that we're prioritizing more support. And I want to echo the idea that this is really important and it's not something that we want to put a Band-Aid on, which kind of sounded like maybe was the concern there.
Okay, well, I do want to clarify, I did not put this into a stipend as a Band-Aid. I wanted to call it out as an important responsibility and do that by giving money towards it. I thought I was going with a lot by making it double any other stipend that we have.
Right.
But what I'm hearing tonight is that that's maybe not enough. And I'm open to that. Like if we want to say 15,000, I would say, okay.
So when you're talking about a special ed, when you're talking about any teacher who works in a charter school, the job is so demanding that it's hard to come up with extra energy beyond what you're already doing.
Right.
So $10,000 is nice, but time is better.
Right.
Yeah, I was to echo that. I think the idea of a release period, if that could be worked into the equation, would be, I think, important. So, yeah, I think time is equally as, equal importance to money.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something we can discuss as we grow this stipend or this responsibility and talk about this stipend comes with a release and X amount of dollars. But I do think we should at least get the ball rolling tonight with this stipend, and then we can revisit this as necessary in the future.
Josh, how many special ed kids do you have, just out of curiosity?
72.
I'd like to ask that at a future meeting, we have a presentation by the SPED department.
Okay.
Using this stipend as sort of a launching point and understand better what challenges they're facing at this point coming up. Well, not necessarily coming out of the pandemic, but dealing with issues that arose from the pandemic, but also just specifically as a school, how are we meeting the needs of those 72 students?
Along the lens of presenting a bit of the teacher and staff perspective on staff turnover, do you think we should have it in February as well? So that there's time between now, January, And then eventually the February board meeting, we can bring that feedback back.
That'd be great.
Hey, Josh, can I ask, so the responsibilities that you outlined for this stipend, so this year it's Sandra with MTSS. Who
I
was
want
it?
to clarify, like Sandra currently has these responsibilities. This stipend more than likely would not go to Sandra though.
Right, it would go to another position and take that off her plate.
It would, yes, the person who signs up for this stipend will take this on. And
Okay.
presumably that would not be Sandra.
Got it.
Are we prepared tonight to say that the person this stipend goes to will be an RSP credentialed teacher?
I'm happy to write that. It doesn't say that currently. It might be better to keep it open just in case. You never know.
Disrupt any plans that you have,
No,
any agenda that you're working on here.
no.
And then historically at SABA, like who has this role fallen to? Has it always just been kind of like a administrative job that like whoever was in Sandra's role took on, or?
Previous years, it was the director of student services. And I think, to be totally honest, I always felt like the team as a whole would kind of just distribute these responsibilities, but there wasn't necessarily an owner over all of it. And I think it's great to be collaborative, but it also can pose issues when it's like reporting time or minutes counting and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I want to give you kudos, Josh, for recognizing that. Like I do think that has historically been a big problem, and also just that whether it was called student services or MTSS, like that job is too big for a person to do well. So recognizing that this is a task that like needs to be done well and needs to be done by somebody who has actual time to do it, I do really respect that. So I apologize if me calling it a Band-Aid, like I didn't mean to call it a Band-Aid. I do appreciate that you are recognizing that this is like a separate task that needs to be dedicated, that needs to have a dedicated person to it in order to make the school run better. So I do appreciate that.
No offense taken. I appreciate the critical look at all the things that we discuss here. So we could approve this tonight. We have a board meeting next week. We could talk to the special ed team and see if they want to present next week. I know they're really busy right now, but I don't know. And then maybe talk to them about this position more, since you have a lot of questions about it, fair ones. And then
I think
maybe
that's a great idea.
bring this back next week. I mean, it's not gonna, whoever ends up getting this, it's not gonna impact their paycheck until January and also the responsibilities won't. I mean, we have 2 weeks left of school, so the responsibilities will begin in January as well. So how does that sound? Maybe we don't vote on this tonight and then we come back next week.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Fine with me. Any other discussion regarding the special ed stipend? Okay, we'll revisit that next week,
December 13th.
December 13th.
Is that the date we're going with?
We haven't discussed that yet, so. I was gonna talk about that at closing items.
Okay, so that, I think, brings us to closing items. And items for the next board meeting, which is,
For discussion. So the two things that I have for next week that we can highlight are the educator effectiveness block grant approval, and then now bringing back this discussion for the special education stipend.
We've also had it on the board, the next board agenda for clarifying the difference between a major office referral and a minor office referral.
Ooh, good reminder. We'll put that down, Daniel.
All right.
When there's a disciplinary issue in the classroom and it's either an office referral or a minor incident, and defining those two, what those are.
That brings back memories.
Yeah, Mary asked that question, I think, in October.
I think I asked it a few months ago.
Okay. Yes, we'll have that next week.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that December 14th?
Uh,
13th, if the board agrees that we'll have, like, are we comfortable with having a meeting next Thursday or next Tuesday, December 13th?
Next Tuesday, the 14th. Today's the 7th.
Oh, I'm on the wrong here. Okay, yes, thank you.
14th,
The 14th of, I misspoke. Yes, the 14th of,
I have my board meeting here, so
do we want to go with the 13th?
Check.
I'm good either time.
Or stick with the 14th and we just,
yeah, it shouldn't take that long, right?
I can do the 13th.
I can do
At
the 13th.
5:30,
Uh-huh.
I could do the 13th.
Okay, how about you?
I can do either work if I'm off. 13 or 14.
First, I'm out of number for you.
I'm not sure because I don't have Anthony's calendar here. I think he has a school activity after school. But I can let you guys know once I get home.
Great.
I can probably tell you actually.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna
Yeah,
check.
can you check, Josh? Thank you.
That's convenient.
Uh,
I think it's with Gonzalez.
I think you're right.
I'm not seeing it. It's on,
Uh,
oh, I wonder if I don't have staff. Sports calendar.
I do
Let
remember.
me see if I can find it on my phone.
But
Yeah, that's the 14th.
The 14th. Okay, so then
It's the 14th, it should be okay. If it's on the 13th, I should be okay.
so the third, Monday, the 13th is when we'll have the next board meeting to approve the educator effectiveness block grant, discuss special education and what we'll do with the stipend, define office referral versus minor incident for discipline, and there's one other thing.
I think that's it because for January, I have the audit and the academic calendar.
Okay,
And then February, staff turnover discussion. Do we want to bring special ed department feedback then as well, or are we just hoping for next week?
let's go for this Monday, and if we see a need to have an additional conversation, we can do that in February.
Okay.
So what are we going to have to inform our decision-making next Monday that we don't have now? Is the SPED team gonna have the time to,
Well, that's the one thing is they have IEPs. This is partly why this stipend, we, for whatever reason, we're booked with IEPs solid this week and next. I think partly because of the year ending, but ideally we would have one or two a week and have them spread out over the course of the school
well,
year.
we have to meet because of the educator effectiveness grant, that's
Right, it's non-negotiable.
not negotiable.
I feel like the data that we would have is we would be able to say, it's gonna be qualitative and say, okay, what's it gonna take to,
Well, how about if you check with the SPED team and say, you know,
I did run this stipend past the SPED team prior to today, but I'm happy to revisit it with input that the board provided.
and would it be possible to have one of the SPED teachers
Absolutely. I think they'd be happy to join.
present something?
Yes.
I think that's all we're looking for.
Okay.
If that doesn't work for some reason, then we can do it February.
Okay. That works.
All right. Any other items for future board meetings? Hearing nothing, then I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for showing up tonight.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Good night.
Happy holidays.